I want to ask you a couple, like the questions I get all the time. And one of the big ones is there's this history of Trump underperforming in the public polls. Okay. The question is, has that been adjusted? What we're looking at now, when we see these public polls, how much of it is been taken care of, compensated for, however you want to put it, or how much of it does still underrepresent Trump's support in the states?
Yeah, and I don't think it's just the overall underperformance. I think it's also a function of knowing how to read polls. And
What do you mean by that?
This might be a little too far in the weeds, but when you look at those few undecided voters, I was just talking to one of my campaigns in the Battleground states about this, is when you look at those few undecideds, and it was one of the reasons I was crazy enough to say that Donald Trump could win back in 2016 was literally the Thursday before Election Day. We got a poll back in Pennsylvania, and it was a literal tie. But when you looked at those few 3-4% that are undecided, sometimes we'll see as little as 2%. They overwhelmingly disapprove of the job that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are doing. They overwhelmingly tell you the country is off on the wrong track. And they also overwhelmingly tell you that they want change. And Donald Trump's job approval rating is usually pretty good with these folks. And a lot of times I think those are those shy Trump voters. But I still think we're seeing in some of these polls where they're undersampling Republicans, they're undersampling Trump voters. Like when you get a survey back and they're telling you that in a battleground state that only like 39 to 42% of their sample actually voted for Donald Trump back in 2020, that's telling you they're undersampling Trump voters.
Okay. But you've always, sometimes when you come on, I'll throw out a poll to you. The New York Times, Siena, Quinnipiac, and you'll say, Sean, look at the sample size of that. They've got 90% Democrats, 10% Republicans. Of course, it's. Are you seeing that sample get fixed, or is it still a problem in a lot of cases?
It's better. It's better than it was, but it's still not perfect. Because, I'll give you an example. State like Pennsylvania that we just talked about, okay? We got a pretty good idea because they register by party there. We know it'll probably be about plus 2% Democrat, give or take. But sometimes you're seeing in these polls where the Democrats outnumber Republicans by about 6 points. And basically, every one of those extra points you give to the Democrat is kind of supercharging whether it's Kamala Harris or a Bob Casey. Like, I really believe from what I'm seeing right now in a place like Pennsylvania, I think Donald Trump's going to win Pennsylvania. And I also think Dave McCormick's probably going to win Pennsylvania.
They're running a great campaign. I'm telling you. That's my, I wouldn't say sleeper, because sleeper implies that no one's seeing it. And I think obviously you're pointing it out, but I think a lot of people are saying McCormick. I feel good about that one. For the reasons that you just mentioned. And we'll get into the states in just a sec. Let me just ask you this, though, because the other thing that I think is interesting is when you talk to people about the two biggest issues, immigration and the economy both come up, right?
Yeah.
Harris clearly gets that. I mean, they see the same data that you and I are talking about because she keeps talking about the economy. She made this visit to the border. You and I both know, and people who are watching this are like, you've got to be kidding me. But at the end of the day, there's enough people who are persuaded by that. Or are they? I guess is the question I would ask you, is that are these tactics and these speeches and these ads having an effect in closing the gap where she's got an issue problem?
Oh, look, the reason she's been forced to do this, because in the beginning, you notice she didn't really want to talk about inflation, especially in the economy and immigration, but she sees her weaknesses. Because what's happened is she got her little, she got the quote unquote little bump, from the convention and her announcement. She hadn't been put under scrutiny. But now the voters are learning more and more about her economic plans. And she basically gave us like two originals saying, this is what my economic plan was going to be. And then she had to give us a third one again last week. Why? Because the people that were seeing her economic plans don't like it. And let me tell you, nobody wins when they're running on tax increases. And she is literally running on the largest tax increase in American history. If they allow the Trump tax cuts to expire, Americans are going to get buried. Middle class families are going to get buried. Small businesses are going to get buried. And then on top of that, she's coming out with these things like an unrealized gains tax. Now, she says it's only going to.
Do you think that people like that's what I think is so interesting is that anybody with a brain, I think, understands this. I get asked all the time about policy versus personal. Like, Trump wins on the policies because people, if you care about policy, Jim, whether it's the immigration, border, tax issues that you just brought up, you're with us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the people who are like, I don't like how he called her this or the name call. I mean, if that's who you are, I don't think, I just don't, we can't help you. You can't fix stupid. But I don't know.
You're 100% correct there. And that's what we want to do in the Trump campaign. The more we can make this about issues, the better off it's going to be. And just listen, remember what she said yesterday? She's saying, we have real problems. We have a real problem at the border. For 3.5 years, she was telling us the border wasn't a problem.
But how does that's to me, this is like walking in and imagine walking into a supermarket and for 3 years being like, I'm never buying that product because it tastes disgusting, right? And then suddenly somebody handing it to you and saying, it's new, it tastes great. You're like, what? Yeah. It's the same exact thing. That's just, I'm not buying the marketing. But that's what they're trying to do is to say, she went down to the border and she's like, we need more of this, we need more of that. And I'm like, wait a second. You literally were on air over and over again. The clip has gone viral of her saying the border is secure. She was saying that to Chuck Todd. Yeah. And now it's like, it's not secure and here's everything we need to do. I'm going, oh my God, or do you really think that we're that stupid?
They do. I mean, whether it was Joe Biden for 3.5 years, them telling, oh no, he's great, we can't keep up with him, and lying about that. And all of a sudden, that's not even an issue anymore to the Democrats. And then they came out with this joy and vibe thing. And then they found out the joy and vibe thing wasn't really selling a lot. One of the things I think that's going to happen, just like what we were talking about, those undecided voters, I think it could be similar to 1980. Now, different kind of election, obviously, back in 1980, but all the polls had the race tied, back then between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. But at the end of the day, Ronald Reagan won by about 9 points because those undecided voters, those persuadable voters at the end, and plus he got a turnout bump, they came out for him. And I think that's one of the things you're going to have now because look, it was funny. I was with President Trump at the event in New York, last week or the week before. And I've been to a lot of Trump rallies over the years. I have never seen anything like it. You had 20,000 people inside the arena all over the place. I'm getting texts, emails, phone calls, people trying to get in. There must have been 25, 30,000 people outside in the People's Republic of New York. I mean, it was just incredible. That's the kind of energy, the emotion. Kamala Harris just can't generate that. No. I mean, what's going on. They're literally bussing people in from Massachusetts to go to her New Hampshire rallies.
But all right. So since you're mentioning some states, let's get into them because this is what it really matters to. So I want to start with what I think are the Trump strongest states. So in my opinion, of the 7 battleground states, you tell me if I'm wrong, I believe that Arizona is the likeliest to come home to Trump. Right now, when you look at like where Nate Silver and a bunch of these guys have their race, they have him up, or the RCP average has Trump up 2 points. It's 49.3 to 47.1. I kind of look at that and say, and I'm just looking at the trend line here real quick, but that's where I kind of, you tell me, am I missing anything in that race?
No, I
in that state.
I think Donald Trump is going to win Arizona. It's just a question of by how much. And you know what the beautiful thing is? You know why he's going to win it? Hispanic voters. His support, most of the surveys we're seeing, and we're doing surveys and we're doing bilingual surveys in Arizona, And I'm seeing a lot of data there, not just I can't talk directly with the campaign stuff, but Donald Trump is winning among Hispanic voters. And
Really?
the reason why he's winning with Hispanic voters is because of the border and the economy. They hate what's going on at the border because these voters obviously did it the right way. They did it the legal way.
Right.
And they see all the problems that it's caused in a place like Arizona. And what's interesting is in Texas, Greg Abbott's kind of sealed the border in Texas. But Katie Hobbs, the failed governor of Arizona, she's left that border wide open, and it's causing crime problems. It's causing the price of housing to go up. It's hurting the schools. It's hurting hospitals, etc. And people see it, and they know it's a huge problem. And that's one of the reasons I agree.
So if when I do my map to 270 on Wednesday, I should feel fairly good about putting Arizona's 11 electoral votes in the Trump column. You agree?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. I just don't feel – I think that last time wasn't even an anomaly. I mean, Biden, with everything that went on there, I'll just leave it at that. I would just say that I think Arizona comes back to its natural home, and it shouldn't even be contested. I think with everything that's going on the border. All right. So my next on the list that I think comes home to Trump, same kind of boat for different reasons, is Georgia, right? Right now, Georgia is up 1.4 for Trump in the Real Clear Politics average. He's up 49.2 to 47.8. But, it's just he's right there at that 50% mark. And when I look down at sort of the poll of all polls that Nate Silver does, he's got it in the same kind of bucket. Is that Trump is up basically a point. Here's the question I have, and we're going to go into North Carolina next, so I can ask this right now. Is this Hurricane Helene and the damage that it's done, could that – I mean, we're talking about a point. Is that going to be a problem?
No doubt. And it could affect things. And I got to be honest with you, Sean, I'm shocked that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris are not in a place like North Carolina, because they got hit bad. And they got
What do you mean? What do you mean not in it?
They're not there. They're not
but
there.
They will be.
They will be, but it's taken them too long. They need to be there now. There's people that don't have power. They don't have water. That's the crazy part is you have.
Yeah, but in fairness, and I'm not trying to defend them, but you've got the governor, a Democratic governor. Okay, just to be clear, Cooper saying, I don't want him here right now because he'll take resources away. You got Kamala flying home. I mean, look, I think what you and I are talking about are PR tactics, right? And obviously, we're on the same team on this.
You know what, though? I'm going to tell you a story. I remember when I was working for Governor Bob Riley down in Alabama. I'm working with Governor Riley down in Alabama. And during the during the BP oil spill. It was the BP oil spill. And I remember Barack Obama was coming down, and somebody made a snide comment about Barack Obama. He goes, no, I want him here. And the reason why he needs to be here is because what happens is, he said, when the president is here, the wheels of the federal government tend to work better.
Yeah.
And now's when they need them. And I'm not saying they need to fly in and make everybody stop working, but you need to be on top of that. Where was Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris was in Las Vegas and LA raising tens of millions of dollars from her Hollywood donors.
Oh, by the way, before I forget this, we're on the potential precipice of a port strike. I know this is not the same. And you got Pete Buttigieg in Michigan doing debate prep with Tim Walz. This guy, I mean, I cannot believe Boy Wonder gets away with the crap that he does on the heels of a potential, massive shutdown to our economy, is off playing debate boy.
It's all politics all the time. And what did Joe Biden say? Well, I'm not going to get involved in that strike. People don't realize this is like one of those things. It's almost like electricity.
Would that strike, if that strike happens tonight, okay, how big of a potential polling calamity? Because the thing that I find interesting about this whole dynamic is that Kamala tries to play the I'm in charge, depending on the situation. I have nothing to do with it. Whatever situation it is, either she's very heavily involved and is a decision maker, or she's never heard of Joe Biden. It depends on the scenario where she wants to claim credit for the good stuff or be like, I don't know this Biden guy if it's a bad thing.
It's all politics all the time. And look, I've got friends that work on the docks in Bayonne. Of course I do, right? And they tell me, look, if this lasts a day or two, even a week, people probably aren't going to feel it that much. But if it goes on anytime longer than a week, this is really bad for the economy. I mean, it could literally destroy Christmas. And
okay, so yeah, I mean, but that's it. It has to. I mean, I think you're right. A few days, it's going to be a couple stories, but it's got to. We have to start feeling it. That's probably about a week, right? And then you're going to see it in the polling.
And
but then the question is, here's my question for you: who gets blamed, Joe Biden or her?
Yeah. Well, the press won't blame either one because that's what
it'll be Donald Trump's fault for not fixing a port problem that.
And look though, Joe Biden she said this on The View. She was there every step of the way. And every time she's asked, what would you have done differently, whether it's on Afghanistan, whether it's on the economy, she was a big supporter of Bidenomics. And that's the thing with her policies. As bad as Joe Biden's policies were, hers will be even worse. Because she's not only supporting all the Biden tax increases, she's got a bunch of her own tax increases.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.